What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Does it bend under a heavy load, or does it explode? These words from Langston Hughes set the theme of what I want to share with you tonight. 150 years ago, Charles Darwin put forward a paradigm that has transformed our perception of the world and the universe, as we have already heard this evening. Evolution by natural selection is a bomb that has exploded old theologies in science and religion. Karl Marx was so impressed by the origin of the species, he offered to desiccate Das Kapital to Darwin, who turned down this gracious offer. In my local paper, I read of a man who discovered a hand grenade in his mother's apartment. The bomb squad was called. The grenade was taken away. You never know what mother has in the house. Think of the bombs we all dread today. Atomic bombs. At that air base, I'm reminded of it today as I watched President Obama speaking from Egypt. The time I saw the bomb was called the Suez Crisis in 1955. And all our bombers were loaded up. Usually they didn't have the bombs aboard. And I walked out and I walked by the lead plane, and the captain was standing there, and he said, "Oh, you want to see the bomb?" He couldn't close the bomb bay doors on it. It was so big. I said, "Well, how powerful is this thing?" He said, "Oh, it's many times Hiroshima." Here were 35 bombers loaded up with these things, not all quite the same size. And I gradually thought on that and realized this is crazy. Think of the bomb of the financial boom and bust that all of us are affected by today in this economy. Think of the global warming and the population bomb that's exploding. I came up with the idea for one debate for our World Congress of Faith to have: the challenge between palm-oiled and orangutans competing for the same space. But I didn't quite win that argument. And then for each of us, explosions change our lives. Not just plane crashes like the one yesterday and market crashes, but private dreams that explode or dry up in the sun. Whether members of Parliament or citizens in the human drama, the sense that we are not what we might have been, that we have known sin. Darwin had a struggle in his own life with his own wife. A new book called Charles and Emma, The Darwin's Leap of Faith, tells the story. The author found that Darwin's marriage was not unlike her own. She was a religious studies major, and her husband was a science writer. He won a Pulitzer Prize for his book on finches, an aspect of evolution. And as her husband wrote on finches, she had bedtime conversations with him about the Darwins. Emma Darwin was concerned that Charles' work on evolution was going to sentence him to eternal damnation. The same arguments rage today, but unlike the righteous thunderbolts of the fundamentalist, Emma became the frequent and helpful editor of Charles Darwin. And unlike many Victorian husbands, Charles was an involved father, playing and even bathing his children. His children would run in and out of his study in their home in Downhouse. They would join him on his daily walks in the garden. His discussions with Emma led to a rethink of how to present his work to the world. He worked to document natural selection for decades before publishing. The author of Charles and Emma says she wrote the book to show, quote, "People who have differing opinions can live together and love each other and keep talking about it. If you wish they were an example of a Unitarian motto, you need not think alike to love alike." I am convinced that another factor helped their marriage, and creativity. Darwin's daily walks in the garden. On my desk is a quote from the philosopher Nietzsche: "Never trust a thought that doesn't come by walking." Darwin's walks remind me of a visitor to the home of the poet Wordsworth in the Lake District. The visitor asked, "Is this Wordsworth's study?" As I recall, the servant replied, "No, this is his library. His study is out of doors." So it was with Darwin. Out of doors, he faced the realities and found nothing is so fearful when you face it as when you run away from it.